The last time we checked out a video on Paper Mario, I was actually quite surprised to see how well thought out the story was. From an outsider's perspective, you wouldn't really expect it from a game with these kind of visuals, but I suppose I was proven wrong. So today, we're gonna go back and check a previous video that Designing For did on the Paper Mario series, just to learn a little bit more about the game. That being said, before you watch this reaction, please make sure to go support Designing For. Link to that is at the very top of the description, as always.
Today, I'm going to tell you the story of the 1,000-Year Door. An awfully long time ago, a beloved game developer released a console that smiled through its pain. It was a system that struggled to pick up sales, but it was said that those who held it treasured it forever. And then one day, a new game was delivered upon them.
I never actually owned a GameCube, nor do I really know the history of consoles, but why exactly did the GameCube not do so well? I do recall playing on my friend's GameCube at their house, and all the games on there were super fun, so I don't know why. I can't see the reason. Maybe it was just too expensive for the time.
A refined title starring a humble plumber of legend appeared. It was bold and strange, a departure in identity from what came before. It was as if the very world its prequel established was destroyed, and with but a single game, what the plumber meant to so many had changed forever.
The fact that the Mario RPGs were able to do something quite different from the usual platformers and really expand upon the world of Mario, I think was a very big reason for why so many people are big fans of the series. I can imagine that the series was already quite popular with the platforming games, but with these RPGs, I feel like a lot of people got more connected to the characters in a way that they could never have before, especially with how good the writing is, apparently.
These fans were enraptured. There was nothing quite like it. Though small, that number carried this story close to their hearts. This was the defining world of the plumber for them. They eagerly awaited what could possibly be next. Years passed. Games would continue to come out, but they never fully satisfied what lay in fans' hearts. And those who did love what was new were treated with hostility. Indeed,
Damn.
This is the tale of the beloved, divisive Paper Mario series.
I feel like this happens way too often, though. When a particular franchise goes in different directions with several of its installments, or like has two very clearly different styles to their games, it just ends up creating a pretty big divide within the community. You could say this about like people who enjoy the older Fire Emblem games versus the ones who got on because of Three Houses, and this whole debate between which style is better, or like the Monster Hunter series with the mainline games versus the portable games, where a lot of people prefer the more faster-paced action of the portable games, versus the others who enjoy some of these slower-paced, more methodical mainline games. That plus a combination of people just having too much free time on their hands so that they can argue about things that don't really matter that much. But I suppose that's what the internet is for.
Yes, it's a tale of treasured memories from a time long since past. A tale of a team wishing to leave more than they could possibly fit in one game. The stories that make up the 1,000-Year Door start here.
That was a cute intro, by the way.
Paper Mario: The 1,000-Year Door is a game whose reputation precedes it. Well regarded in its time, though not quite held up as one of the GameCube's all-timers by the gaming press compared to some more mature offerings. TTYD has since come to be one of the most championed games by those who grew up with it. Its writing, combat, world, and characters have been held on high as the pinnacle of the Paper Mario series. Yeah! Potentially to the chagrin of anyone who just wants to talk about Paper Mario without getting into a debate on if the series ever lived up to TTYD's example ever again.
Damn. I'm kind of interested to see where most people's opinions are nowadays to the series, because outside of what we learned from the Thousand Year Door, I don't know anything about any of the other games. However, from the previous video, I do feel like the general consensus was like, most people really recommend I try this one out if I ever, for whatever reason, played Paper Mario.
Paper Mario has been something of an identity crisis series all of its life, changing in battle system and tone and perspective so often that no one really knows what makes a good Paper Mario. Just which one is their favorite and how to violently defend it.
This is a cool
But
concept.
even among all those who adore Super...
But I can definitely see where the divide is going to start to happen when you make these drastic of a changes to a beloved IP. Like, you get a sequel and you're hoping for more, but better, except you get something completely different. So yeah, you would be a little bit disappointed. However, another part of me is also like, I want game developers to test out new things, because how else are innovations going to be made? But maybe it's more so the fault of the marketing, or like the naming of the series, where if you're really going to change things, you might want to put it in a or under a different name. In a similar fashion as to like how my coverage of a particular video game's lore, like say I do Warhammer lore, I'm probably not going to be putting that in the playlist for any of the videos that I do for Designing For, because Designing For doesn't cover any Warhammer lore. Putting the two together would be kind of weird, right? So just put it under a separate playlist. Just make a separate title that is clearly labeled as a spin-off, so that people can go into it with different expectations from what you would get from the mainline series. The first example I could think of is Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. Heck, you could even throw Soul Hackers in there. All three different games are going to have very different vibes, despite the fact that they all come from the same place originally.
Paper Mario, who hail the Origami King, who really like all the entries except maybe that loser, who actually played Paper Jam. The second entry in the series is normally the one that people go back to talking about the most, for all of its various faults and strengths. And I think there's good reason for that.
Hey, you know, even the perfect game has some faults. You couldn't really call it perfect in that aspect, but perfect doesn't exist. It's perfect for you, and that's what matters. Like, I love Twilight Princess, and that's like my favorite Zelda game, but I can acknowledge that there are some parts that I wouldn't be happy to go back to and play, while also acknowledging that it was kind of peak.
All of the Mario RPGs capitalize on various aspects like timing-focused combat, witty humor, occasional surrealist elements, and more. TTYD is the game that most carefully hones in on one specific element that the entire game emerges from. Not necessarily a gameplay function. The Mario and Luigi games and Origami King commit to their combat systems far more stringently than their mostly older brother, but in what everything is built around thematically instead. And this emotional core is a powerful one, incredibly resonant to those who experienced it in their youths, and appreciable practically without age to this day.
That's the thing, right? When you make a game with a very good story that people can connect to, it makes your game far more memorable than it would otherwise. Of course, there are several other ways that you can make a game memorable. I'm pretty sure this is going to release long before that video ever comes out, but I did learn about Conker's Bad Fur Day, and that game took the route of being more of a comedic take on the platforming genre, knowing exactly what it is and having fun with it. Because to be honest, making a good story like this is not easy. You'd hope that all media that comes out would have a good story, but it's unfortunately not going to be the case. Regardless though, whatever you do get a good one, just hold on to it dearly.
Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is, with earnestness and love, Nintendo's great storyteller.
Perfect time to cue intro.
Before we dive into TTYD, some set dressing for the games that came before. The Mario series has always been a super imaginative fantasy, a wonderland of various locales strung together through obstacle courses for the titular platformer to parkour through with a sense of whimsy. Or, to be less pretentious, it's a bunch of fun-looking blocks for the cartoon man to jump around in. However, assigning place and purpose to these locations is a bit trickier of a task. We had
Much like the Kirby series, we had things implemented for the sake of gameplay, and we didn't really think about what this would mean for the lore until the new director came in, of course. But the thing is, right, when you're starting out, you don't know how big this series is going to be. You might have a pretty good idea and you have some sort of expectation and hope for it, but initially, you just want to test out the waters first and see how it goes. And from there, then you can expand upon it once you know that you got something good. With how flexible all the Mario characters can be, and how many different kinds of games you can put them in, I feel like this was an inevitable thing.
Maps for Grassland, the Pipe Maze. Heck, we had a whole Super Mario World mapped out. But a lot of these were video game levels primarily, and contributors to the feel of the Mushroom Planet second. Outside of Yoshi's Island and one specific castle, visualizing exactly what the Mushroom Kingdom was, and what Mario was fighting for other than a couple of toads and the princess, proved difficult.
A little difficult.
Or at least had a lot less of a sense of place than contemporaries like Angel Island or Crocodile Isle. This is what Super Mario RPG rectified, giving Mario a living, breathing world to explore. Towns filled with mushroom citizens, areas where indigenous species like the moles and Nimbians have learned to thrive. Booster!
Who the heck is Booster? Who knows?
But this game was still something of a linear adventure, one solid loop from World 1 to World 8. Something that its eventual follow-up, Paper Mario, was more than glad to rectify. Paper Mario took common Mario plot elements, enemies, and trappings, and set out to create a more fleshed-out world based on them. As the Japanese title implies, a Mario story. Mario would scour the far reaches of an interconnected map, solving problems, finishing side quests, delving into dungeons, remixing his old backdrops like Mario World Boo Houses or Mario 3 Fortresses. And through it,
yeah, this is so cool though. Especially if you were a fan of all the games up until now. Getting to see all of these familiar places from a new perspective and actually being able to go out and explore said places, I can imagine that being, like, genuinely a dream come true. Something that you had only imagined being able to do, but now you actually get to do it. And now that I think about it, perhaps the reason why we had the whole Paper Mario aspect thing was maybe due to hardware limitations at the time. Although, I'm not too sure on that one. Like, what exactly were we capable of when it came to this massive RPG game?
He would meet new allies, new rivals, new mythical beings to set up the lore of his world.
New enemies with funky attacks!
And cement his dynamic,
What was that?
not just
An
with
actual
Peach and
ad?
Bowser, but with his universe at large. Through these adventures, what it meant to be Mario became crystal clear. He's a living legend in his own world. Everyone's heard the tale of Mario's incredible bravery and jumping ability. Everyone knows that Mario can solve basically any problem he puts his boots to.
I love this though. When you're actually going through a fictional universe and the actions that you've done throughout the story mean something to the people within that universe and actually changes things around you. This is definitely one of the things that I enjoy a lot about something like Trails in the Sky, where the world feels alive because of it. The NPCs have their own stories going on, and yet the actions that you do throughout your story and that may have an effect on them also causes things to change. People will recognize you, and relationships that you built up actually go somewhere and get developed. Without it, the world would feel kinda just dead.
Because Mario is there, everyone, from Toad children to wise old gurus to regional nobility to those
Oh my god, that's Frog Fuchsius? I just read the name.
looking over his world in the heavens above, can have faith that with a hop, skip, and a jump, everything will turn out all right. So what if we take that all away?
Classic Castlevania shot.
Is that the noose?
Mario is a nobody in the Thousand Year Door. He's ventured to the far-off town of Rogueport, where only a few legends of the humble hero who battles the ferocious Koopa King have reached the ears of the youth. Instead of the
Interesting.
cheerful Toad,
This is a cool way to, like, reset your character, essentially. Of course, people over there might not know you as well. You haven't directly impacted them at all.
and Koopas that would be happy to give a neighborly greeting to Mario, he's surrounded by thieves, criminals, a mafia syndicate, this Goomba who keeps falling for credit card fraud? What do you mean by this, sir? Mario gets mugged by a pickpocket while
Excuse
idly
me?
exploring town, threatened to be 86'd casually by local gangs, smooched by far more forward girls than he's used to all throughout the game, is cursed for just trying to help out some dude trapped in a box. The incredulous but positive tone of the Mushroom Kingdom is obliterated with the blunt, almost mundane criminality of the seedy Rogueport. And Mario gets treated like any average sucker on the streets without any of his heroic background propping him up.
This also makes for a fantastic scenario where now, instead of, because of the previous games and all the things that Mario has done before, it is now the things that you are about to do within this game that changes the way people think about you and perceive you. Just another really good way to make it your story.
The only things that persist through Mario's adventure are that he has to collect 7 magic stars, Bowser occasionally popping up through a sheer refusal to get left behind,
That's Bowser.
and Mario himself. And Mario is all that Mario needs to make for an unforgettable adventure. Even if you strip away Mario's reputation, respect, how the world around him is supposed to react to him, it doesn't matter. His jumping prowess, bravery, and the knack he has to get those around him to believe in him is still there, and proves its worth time and time again at getting him out of tricky situations. It's not long before he manages to win over a young Goomba with his simple kindness in protecting her from a weird cult, which leads Mario to helping
Weird
out well, a ton of other people. Even if the world itself is darker
building a
and more
legend.
antagonistic, the place Mario leaves others in remains the same. Better than where they started and believing in themselves just that much more.
This is really hilarious because of the direct comparison I have at the moment with, like, Conker's Bad Fur Day, where Mario leaves people in a better place than when they were before they met him. Whereas for Conker, everybody else is usually worse off for meeting him.
But instead of, oh no, a shy guy stole my dictionary, Mario is helping the daughter of a local mafia don elope with her true love without him sleeping with the nibbles. Or helping a girl accept herself after relentless verbal abuse from her older sister. Or everything that has to do with Admiral Bobbery. And this game is very aware that instead of some young, noble JRPG protagonist helping these people become better versions of themselves, it's super freaking Mario.
Hello!
There is some inherent and intended silliness in this cartoon character listening to this Koopa Troopa talk about how his success has robbed him of all motivation, and so he never leaves his bed because of the futility of enjoying existence.
And this is what I'm talking about, man. This is very surprising to see from a game of this art style. You wouldn't really think it, but we do delve into some deeper, more mature themes while still keeping it lighthearted and fun somehow. That's a very unique balance. And honestly, one that I appreciate a lot. I mean, there's a reason why I like mad scientist characters, or the type of villains that are evil, but they're still very charming and funny.
But Mario's been made a strong enough character through his previous adventures that he's believable in this role. Mario is such a strong everyman, praised to be able to do anything, fit any role that he needs to. And so, the Thousand Year Door is glad to test and push that as much as possible by taking the Mario story and applying it to as many other tales as possible. Each of the first 7 chapters of TTYD represents a different form of genre fiction, and each and every one approaches it with a challenge of, okay, what if we made Mario the protagonist? From the incredibly obvious.
It almost feels like several different Sonic games in one game. Because the whole thing with Sonic, right, was that you could put him into basically anything, and a lot of the games have very different themes to them because they are essentially of other stories. But then Sonic shows up one day. But I suppose here, instead of, having a character that shows up to affect the story, it is directly happening to our protagonist, while also delving into many different genres in order to help diversify the gameplay and clearly separate chapters out from each other within the player's mind. I honestly think this is a really good tactic as well, because there may be particular types of stories that don't connect to a certain person playing the game, but that doesn't mean the rest of the game is going to be like that. You never know what might be around the next corner that might really appeal to you. So I'm sure that there's an aspect of this game that most people would be able to find enjoyable, if not the entire game itself.
And classic castle and dragon setup of the first chapter, to the point of that even being the chapter's name, to the more obtuse gladiator pit and sports story by way of professional wrestling. TTYD is almost gleeful to throw Mario into story setups that he is woefully out of place in. But every single one of these remains a...
Dude. This video gave me PTSD. It was a very good video. You guys should go watch it on Designing For's channel. But honestly, checking out this particular arc from the Thousand Year Door is what got me more interested in learning about Paper Mario, because of how realistic its portrayal of the camera, the lights, and the action of professional sports can be. And the other side of it that the viewers will probably never see. And somehow you get to experience it all for yourself by playing Paper Mario, of all things.
Very sincere homage to its genre. Mario doesn't just bop a dragon, he scours the dragon's lair for its one weakness, learning from those who fell to its traps before in order to slay the beast. Mario has to scrounge for supplies and rally a crew that's rapidly falling apart with his presence and kindness when stranded on a desert island in his Treasure Island setup. The whole game warps around Mario serving as a detective, eschewing combat entirely in favor of simple investigation in an intensely clear tribute to...
Oh my god, yeah. Mario on the Orient Express. Man, I would really love this section of the game if I was playing through it. We really are genre jumping. And yet, it still fits because of how wide of a scope this game can cover. I'm glad that while they were working on this game, they saw the opportunity and they took it.
Murder on the Orient Express. Again and again, scenario after scenario, Mario is a stranger wandering into mysteries, perils, and plots. And every time, he meets the story on its own level and solves it with a few jumps and a good attitude. And as players progress through these various stories, it's incredibly easy to grow attached. Maybe they didn't know they loved wrestling, but the over-the-top showmanship of the Glitzpit chapter was able to win them over, while also playing up the gritty underbelly of the business in a more fantastical way. Maybe Dupless riffing on classic fairy tales and losing parts of yourself to a fey prankster enraptured your imagination. Maybe the retro sci-fi aesthetics of the Crossknot Fortress made the homage to space race age fiction seem rad as hell. Through being this unifying force that's able to come out on top in every scenario, Mario can bridge all of these stories. Classic fantasy, tournament drama, dark fairy tale, swashbuckling adventure, aristocratic mystery, Silver Age sci-fi, and Okay, I think this is Battle
Whatever this
Revolution,
is.
but it only really works out that way from this one line of dialogue from the shopkeeper calling Mario a uniter to both sides. So, Tree, and use a good sense of humor and his
Okay.
endless heroism to share a love of these stories to all of his players in a comfortable way. And to so many, this style of adaptation, of bringing Mario's spirit to these genres to celebrate and parody them for all they're worth, has never been topped. But this is just the start of Paper Mario's love of storytelling.
Jesus
It's gotta
Christ.
get every bit it can to
Bro.
squeeze out of its
Oh god. Massive props to whoever worked on the editing for this video, man.
characters too. As per usual with RPGs, the game loves to delve into character backstories, personal tales that allow a character's whole self to be laid bare and grow from their interactions with others. And it actually does a fabulous job of it. Be it
Very
Koops
nice.
evolving from a crybaby who leaps into danger more because he feels useless than anything and just wants to give his life meaning, to a guy willing to stand with Mario against horrible dangers and admits that he thinks he likes himself a little, to Tech Double Cross.
Man, video games are awesome, dude. Like, it's one thing to see a character in a movie evolve throughout the movie, but I just don't think it can be comparable to an actual party member of yours who you've met and spent time with and fought many battles through, and then finally letting them decide something for themselves and seeing how much your actions have impacted them. Yes, true, they are a fictional video game character, but man, in those moments they feel so real.
A computer tasked with keeping Princess Peach captive, dealing with feelings of love from the princess's presence that he agonizes over his failure to properly process. To Bobbery, an old sailor willing to waste away in penance for being at sea whilst his wife passed away from illness without his knowing.
Oh shit, dude. I can see why Pierre was like, this is the first time I ever cried to a video game. This reminds me of the old lady in the lighthouse for Nier Replicant. For any of you guys who have played Nier Replicant, or I suppose Nier Gestalt, y'all know what I'm talking about. That story is sad, bro. And I suppose these kind of stories aren't all that uncommon. Really, a classic tale for sailors who unfortunately do not get to see their lovers ever again after leaving them to shore. Or vice versa, the lovers never seeing the sailors again because of a shipwreck. But like with all tropes that we see very commonly, it is more so about the presentation of it than it is the fact that it is a trope. Tropes are tropes for a reason, and that's because they work when they're done well.
Overcoming his deep loss so that he can feel joy again before he joins her in the afterlife. The themes that TTYD is willing to tackle are a bit of a step up in emotional complexity than what earlier adventures had described to Mario. But the game doesn't just limit this to major party members or highly story-important characters. Take, for instance, Flavio.
Oh god. What is this? What is this montage? Brother.
This silly muppet of a man you meet very early on. A real eye-catching weirdo of an NPC singing in the corner about how overwhelmingly wealthy he is. And that's about it until you realize, hey, I could use a ship to get to an island, and this rich boat-owning 20-something is looking for something to do with his life to feel important. Like most 20-somethings, but with money and a boat.
I'm getting too much money.
Flavio is
Damn. I wish that was me. It's a struggle, man. But we get by day.
immediately won over by Mario's charisma, which he also helpfully attributes to himself, and is pretty much what you'd expect of a character who looks like this. He's a massive braggart, looks to others to solve problems for him, and tries to withhold wine, vintage cola from a dying man because he wants the romantic experience of scrounging a desert island and couldn't possibly part with it until you give him a nice coconut in these trying times. But through all these airs he puts on, Flavio documents his journey in a journal, with all of the daring do of the adventurer he wants to be, with the bravado one would expect out of an adventure novel protagonist. But he's not that. And after everyone on his crew constantly reinforces it, even Flavio recognizes this. And despite all that, when push comes to shove and his crew is under a cannon barrage, death inevitable, Mario unable to save the day immediately, it's Flavio who steps up, saying that as a leader, it's his responsibility to find a solution. And he manages to negotiate a deal with a 1,000-year-old ghostly ghost pirate to save the day and put a lot of sprites on screen to make Miyamoto pop off.
When Intelligent Systems finished the programming for 1,000 characters and showed it to him, Mr. Miyamoto finally gave the game his go-ahead. It appears that what we presented him with was what he wanted to do in the N64 version. Hell yeah, dudes. And interesting, it was IS, huh? Isn't Intelligent Systems also working on Fire Emblem? Or am I mixing up studios here? Regardless though, Flavio's story, kind of relatable. Like, I'm sure a lot of us have a particular image in our heads of who we want to be. Maybe we even daydream a little bit about the things that we could be doing. But to actually go out there and do those things is kind of scary. That's why it's always nice to have media like this that shows you that you can step up and do those things. Takes just a little bit of courage. Although granted, reality is a little bit different, but still.
Due to his sudden bravery and desire to pursue his thrilling, romantic dream, Flavio manages to save everyone, gives Mario a taxi service back to the island whenever he feels like it, and becomes that brave adventurer that he portrays himself as. And though now he is merely the second richest man in town, as this whole expedition was a financial disaster, he's okay with that. For he's found something far more enriching than doubloons. A story. He reached the pinnacle of his tale, and at its zenith shouted, "Flavio!" to the wind.
Hell yeah, dude.
This is a totally inconsequential NPC, effectively an annoying obstacle to serve as a taxi from one place to another. Matters about as much as my—
Brother, it's a side quest, and side quests in video games, they get it wrong so often that it is incredibly refreshing to see more effort put into one. Like, I love Persona 4 Golden to bits, but the side quests in that game are just a glorified excuse to go and grind, which you kind of have to, and it gives you something to shoot for at least. But I would prefer something that actually matters to someone, rather than go get a piece of charcoal from Kanji's dungeon or something. And a side quest like this is a pretty good example of what I think side quests should be. But of course, you know, it takes a lot more time to make these things, and we all know how hectic game development cycles can be.
Or like one of the teachers you don't social link with in Persona. But Paper Mario sees fit to not just give Flavio a story, but to properly tie it in with the feeling of the tale he's tributing. And it's not just limited to Flavio either. Jolene, Punio, Goldbob, Don Pianta, all minor characters who get their own arcs, their own little development, to complement the story Mario wants to tell. But this is just like basic writing, right? Plenty of RPGs have minor characters that complement the stories of
We say basic writing. I wish more RPGs had basic writing. This is the baseline, that I don't think anybody else knows it.
the regions that you enjoy and then move on from. Some of them even becoming favorites. It's nice to see Mario doing it, but it's
Don't
gonna
recognize
take
either
more
of
than
those
that
characters.
to impress me. After each chapter, Mario can bump into his brother hanging out around Rogueport, revealing that Luigi's been having his own adventure right off screen. Dude. And of course, he's glad to share his exploits with you in a long-winded oral spiel that isn't just amusing, but furthers Luigi's character. He's just so happy to embellish the truth a little bit to prove that, yeah, he's brave and cool and competent and is going to have a princess fawning over him just like you, bro.
Yeah, dude. I don't mind Luigi embellishing the story a little bit. Dude definitely needs a bit more confidence. Although, didn't this guy conquer several Luigi's Haunted Mansion games before? Or maybe those games came out after this one. Regardless, Luigi's got that dog in him. He just doesn't realize it yet.
He even has his own partners next to him to parallel your quest. Only they're far more likely to tell you how badly Luigi's messed up this whole thing so far and give a more balanced account. But that's not all! Luigi's exploits become so well known due to his braggadocious nature here that he's managed to secure a book deal, letting the player reread the Paper Luigi story to get a
Yo, that's awesome! Oh man, this is just like the books that you can collect in Shows in the Sky. They have this whole like book series you can collect, and it's quite well written actually. I genuinely enjoyed reading them, except for the fact that, you know, you can very easily miss some of the books if you advance the story a bit too far or do a particular quest. But, you know, whatever, that's just how JRPGs are. But I'm so glad that they put in the efforts to make this an actual thing. Some people may never read this, or actually, probably most people would never read this. But having this here makes the world feel so much more alive, and you get the sense of something happening in the background because you know for a fact that Luigi's out there doing something. And I hope that there is some sort of payoff to this where both of your journeys come to a head, and because of something that Luigi is doing, you get to be able to do something about it. It's just a really solid tactic to making your story more dynamic, which, well, I can't say is really common. I wish it were. But hey, at least most of the games we've tried out here on the channel have done something like this. At least the RPG ones.
More dramatized, but somehow more accurate account. Propping Luigi up with the courage of a YA novel protagonist. Throwing some shade at Mario. And even including details that Luigi himself wouldn't dare recount to you. Luigi's knack for storytelling, established earlier in the first Paper Mario with his diary, is actively making him a bigger star in Rogueport than the silent and humble Mario.
I didn't know
and
that,
this isn't just limited to Luigi. There's also Lumpy, this random rat dude.
I didn't know that we had a Luigi's Diary in previous games, so I suppose this was just expected.
Who you can throw money at to go drilling for oil. Now, I know that sounds bad, but once he's returned, he'll share with you the journal of his expedition. It even furthers lore and characterization from the first Paper Mario. Chapter 2 characters Colorado and Moustafa appearing, and being further fleshed out through the eyes of a dramatist. Oral tradition is preserved through the rooftop minstrel, Grifty, who will let you pay him to get lore on the very game you're playing, revealing background details on all of those curse chests you've encountered, and even the 1,000-Year Door itself. You can slink into this cage and talk to this Playboy Bunny Boo, who'll tell you all about her life, likes, interests, whatever, as long as you keep getting high scores in casino games. This family is falling apart with a struggling writer father, a shut-in child, a gambling-addicted absentee mother, and a kid who never comes home. And every chapter, they slowly realize that maybe they need to band together and enjoy each other instead of drifting further away and resenting each other. These crows talk about climate change and update their conversation through the game. These are completely meaningless events. Only Lumpy leads to any actually particularly tangible.
No, dude. It is these meaningless events, these meaningless NPC stories. It makes it alive in the minds of the players. And that is everything. That is everything for an RPG. Like, I genuinely would not have fallen in love with the Trails in the Sky series if it didn't have anything just like this. And while I've never played this game, and potentially may never, I can still understand exactly how you guys who played this for the first time might have felt by comparing it to how the first time when I played the first Trails in the Sky game, felt with just how charming the world was. All these tiny little things go a long way, and more developers need to realize this.
Rewards, and reading his story doesn't get you anything. TTYD can only share what it truly values with the player as its own reward. A love for storytelling. Between oral tradition, the written word, dramatic first-hand accounts, or just the day-to-day living of the residents of Rogueport, every type of storytelling is celebrated as much as it can be, there for the player to seek it out only if they want to. Heck, combat in the game itself is presented as a stage play, Mario's entire adventure captured as one big story for the residents of the world to enjoy.
Okay, so that's what Pierre meant by having everything revolve around a central theme. The fact that they were able to pull off something like this is so smart. You always ideally want all of your gameplay systems to flow back into each other. That helps create a very cohesive gameplay loop and style. And honestly, from everything that we've seen so far from this game, it is a masterclass in this.
And for you two as well. Dialogue, writing, world building, that's its own reward in Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. There are traditional side quests, Mario fulfilling his duty to help as many people as possible by answering a message board, but most of these really suck, and the practical rewards are rarely worth the time wasted going.
Never mind then. Well, it's not every single side quest that is like this, so at least there's that. You gotta have the things for people to grind out XP if they really need to. But just the fact that we have a few that really mean something is nice.
Going through them. The reason to spend more time in Rogueport with Mario and Goombella and Koops and Flavio and Grifty and all the others is because it's a world that wants to share its stories with you. Right down to Goombella having something to say in every screen of the game and about every single NPC. This game wants you to fall in love with all of the stories it cares to share. And I think it ends up doing that beautifully by telling its own. The final chapter of The Thousand-Year Door, aptly titled
The Thousand-Year Door?
Yeah, is a simple payoff to every major plotline of the game. All of the stories that the player could have learned from Grifty come to pass, meeting another giant dragon. All of the old legends proving themselves true. The main plot coming to a climax with Mario fighting this nerdy cult leader. Bowser finishes his quest of desperately trying to become plot relevant by literally crashing into the penultimate boss fight so he can beat up Mario. Everything comes to a head. And finally, Mario seems to meet a story that he can't live up to. The final boss of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door is a demon, a being of destruction, far greater than any foe Mario has faced before, beyond his comprehension to defeat. The Shadow Queen is an utterly otherworldly force, tonally, visually, and
okay. Like, just the image of it already looks pretty creepy, but in motion? Damn. Really giving me off final boss aura there. And I've never actually seen this before.
Presentationally wrong to fit in Mario's world. While all other characters have had some sort of comedic styling to fit in with the Paper Mario universe,
this one is just menacing. The Mistress of
Darkness is a pure, corruptive devil. Not a sense of humor or wit. Merely the confident inevitability that no matter how great her unassuming foe may be, he will bow before her and perish. Against a story he's unsuited to play the hero in, Mario will die.
No!
But Mario's been taking on tales far past his pay grade for days on end. And through his bravery, those 7 stars he collects every game react, sent all over the world to all of those people Mario helped, Each story that he helped finish coming back to tie into the finale. From professional wrestling.
Yes. This is so good. It's basically the anime like power of friendship thing going on. But thematically, this works so well because of how we've set up the game. Essentially, every single chapter within the story has been a foreshadowing for the ending, and so the payoff feels deserved, it feels earned, and not just some random BS that happens.
To a Russian Babam army, from a bunch of poor, lonely goth villagers to the fabulously wealthy, from his brother to Noose, Mario has united all sorts of voices, all personalities all around the world. People from all walks of life have reason to believe in Mario, believe in his friends, believe that he can overcome the end of all things. He's cared enough to give them hope, so they'll keep giving their hope right back to him. And through this power, through everyone believing in him, he finds the strength to wound the demon.
Let's go!
As he gains ground, an audience once devoured by shadows pours in, unafraid of the impending end of the world, knowing that Mario...
that's so cool! And we're even using the fact that the battle stage is like a stage play, and that the audience itself is also a part of the battle, and shifts depending on the state of the battle. Hell yeah, dude! There's so many good ideas here. I can already see why this would be like somebody's favorite, and you know, maybe they didn't go to these sort of lengths for the other games, or maybe they did and it just didn't land as well. Regardless, from what I'm seeing here, this all is just so good. And if I was playing this back in the day, this probably would have been like one of my favorite games ever. It's got a lot of ingredients that I enjoy personally from video games, because I really enjoyed the narrative of games. The story is very important to me, much more so than the gameplay is at some times. It really depends on how bad the gameplay is. But if it's good enough and it has a great story, then yeah, that's gotta be a top tier one in my book.
Mario will see this one through just like everything else. No matter how unfitting and simple he may seem, characters, audience members, players, they don't just believe Mario will win. They are invested in him, invested in this world, invested in seeing the end of this story. And in the face of all of that, Mario can't help but deliver. What else is a hero for?
Oh yeah!
That's a satisfying
That is
conclusion.
the heart of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door to me. There is no definitive best part of this game. Sure, Chapter 3 usually gets tossed around as really good, but the repetitive nature of battling through a tournament arc might not be everybody's cup of tea. Maybe the setup of Chapter 4 and all of the cool doppelganger and Rumpelstiltskin homages are more than enough to let you forgive one or two too many backtracking trips through this annoying forest. Maybe Chapter 6's cute train mysteries are too simplistic for you and pretty dull. Or they could be the most fun things in the whole game. What is important is that some part of TTYD is incredibly resonant to most people.
That's exactly what I said. It's a massive advantage that we have because we're telling so many different kinds of stories in the same game. That being said, we've also found a good way to tie all of them together in a way that makes sense. Like any game, you can tell multiple different stories in one game, but to make it all cohesive is something that not all of them are able to achieve.
And a genuine love for Mario lets him introduce and share so many different styles, genres, and colors of storytelling to so many others. It opens up Mario's world tremendously, making his Wonderland a place where truly anything can take place, from the mundane to the extraordinary. And the future yarns that can be spun are seemingly innumerable. TTYD isn't just filled with ideas and celebrations. It's teeming with possibilities of what future titles could bring, of what new things Mario could introduce, of maybe revisiting these stories down the line and seeing how they've developed in the years since. And that's why I feel the series has become so contentious as it's moved away from this promise.
Why?
Future Paper Mario titles still have wonderful moments. I struggle to call any of them bad games. Okay, yeah, this one is pretty boring to me, but the others are cool, if not great. But they continue to tell wonderful character stories that can absolutely enrich a world around them, or add more perspective to the Mario universe that was either missing before or is refreshing to see explored further. There are individual tales here that can still resonate to a life-changing degree to players. Leave them Mario fans and fans of these games specifically forever. But man, did TTYD cast an incredibly wide net and commit to it hard. Other Paper Mario games have focused greatly on trying to remix the series' battle system, or how to interact with a truly paper world to emphasize a sense of style and visual identity. And look, I love TTYD's battle system as much as anybody, except for this random fog of war that I hate. I think it's really fun to break in half. I love what other games have done to capitalize on it and let it shine. But it isn't why I come back to Paper Mario. Not all these years later.
It is really a shame that when it comes to innovation, there are some things that are unfortunately just left behind, and they may be the things that people really love about the game. Perhaps it's the disconnect between the developer and the audience, where the audience knows what they want, but the developer doesn't, and so they don't really deliver that. That, or honestly, it could just be the fact that telling such a great story that is so cohesive is pretty damn hard. Like, how do you fit that into the game mechanics as well? You can't just do the same thing again, right? Well, honestly, you probably could, and I think people would actually enjoy it. But I can see the visual style having so many cool things to explore, plus the fact that I'm fairly certain whatever console the other games released on would probably have to be made in order to utilize that particular console's mechanics or features to its fullest extent. So maybe they had to figure something out, and so it changed a lot of things, and that's why it ended up the way that it is. Now, at the very least, we still have the story of TTYD to come back and visit, and see as a shining example for storytelling in video games.
I come back for Mario, and Peach, and Bowser, and Bow, and Bobbery, and Black,
characters that you
and
fell in love with.
Tippy, and Rockhawk. I come back for Paper Luigi. I come back for Toad Town and Rogueport and Fort Francis. I come back because I love these characters. I love this world. I love these games. I love these stories.
I feel the same way about Trails. They're such long games, but to me, they're so worth it because I'm invested in all the characters. I almost feel like a parent seeing them grow up and progress throughout the story. And because of that investment, I want to see how it ends. So regardless of how many hours it is, I'll get to it. Eventually, I'll see it. And that's why I personally emphasize story more than gameplay. The gameplay needs to be good. Like, don't get me wrong. But if I don't have any emotional attachment to a game's characters, then eventually I will run out of motivation to play said game, unless if the gameplay loop itself is intrinsically valuable to me. And that's why I love learning about video game lore. Understanding the background of why things are the way that they are just enhances the experience for me.
And I doubt I'm alone. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door is a sincere love letter to all forms of stories. And as such, fans of any of those kinds of tales, or those first introduced to them through TTYD's telling, tend to love the game in turn. It's a nostalgic gold mine of a game. So easy to remember, recall, retell, and share with others. Hopefully even more given an actually accessible remaster. And no matter where the series or Mario as a whole may go in the future, I'm happy with the collection of tales we got, and hope that someone will continue to spread the feelings they brought out to more in the future. That, like the game itself, is how you design for storytelling. Flavio!
Awesome. The game itself is just so incredibly cute. But what makes it even better is that the story itself is just damn incredible. I really appreciate how they took the stance of telling more mature stories despite very clearly being marketed towards a younger audience. Because quite frankly, kids aren't stupid. And eventually they have to get introduced to these sort of things. That's just life. But what's important is the way that it is conveyed. And I think the 1,000-Year Door here does it in some of the best ways that I've seen. I don't know about you guys, but for me, whenever I see any plot points, any game mechanic, or a particular character in a story come back in the end in like a perfect circle, that it all just loops in on itself and it all just makes sense, it just feels so damn satisfying. I always crave moments like that in stories, and it doesn't feel like a satisfying ending without any sort of payoff like that. But yeah, dudes, what are your thoughts on 1,000-Year Door? I'm sure for those of you who played, you probably have some stories of your own to tell, so let me know in the comments down below. And of course, if you enjoy these kind of videos and you haven't already, definitely make sure to go visit Designing For's channel, go and support them on their Patreon. A link to the OG video is always at the top of the description. But anyways, dudes, that's going to be it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.